Welcome to Whiskey and War Stories, the podcast where two veterans and their guests share the raw and real tales of their military/first responder experiences, delving into the depths of mental health, PTSD, and the triumphs that emerge from the toughest battles. Join us as we uncork stories, sip on wisdom, and navigate the path to resiliency. Welcome back, everybody. What's going on, homie?
So, brother, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Just this heat is heating, dude.
Yeah?
You know how they say the math is mathin'? This heat is heating up.
Well, it's
But,
toward the end of August, so we're starting to wind down and slowly approaching fall, right?
Yeah. I mean, I hope we approach it fast because I'm going to Arizona this weekend.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be nice and toasty for me out there. But nothing like celebrating my marriage anniversary
Oh,
in
congrats.
110-degree weather.
Congrats.
I think it's going to be like 110 or 105, something like that.
Cool.
So, but yeah, man, super excited. Super excited.
Congrats, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
So, want to talk about the Monday event?
Yeah,
Golf?
so Monday we were invited to the Friends of West Covina Police Canine Association. We were invited to their event. We went out there, we set up our booth with our new Easy Up.
Yeah.
And it was great, man. We sold a lot of raffle tickets.
Gave out a lot of old fashions.
We gave out a lot of old fashions.
Nice.
Yeah.
We sold a lot of challenge coins.
Yep.
And honestly, it was great. We get a chance to network with a lot of veterans
Yeah.
and police officers and tons of people that wanted to come on the podcast, and just the conversations we had, while we were at hole 17. It was just, it was amazing. I love going to those. I love networking with people, and it was an awesome event. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful that West Covina invited us out there. And
No, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Big shout out to Brian with West Covina.
yep,
Thank you so much for inviting us and letting us go on there, and a big thank you to letting me take my clubs and golf a little bit while we were there. Just
boy.
because the course that we were at, it's a private course, so I will never afford to golf there. so I was like, you know what, I might as well get my swings where I can, and it was a golf tournament, so I really appreciate that. But yeah, man, super fun event.
It was.
Had an amazing time. Look forward to the next golf tournament or just event in general.
Yeah.
We're not prejudiced to any different event. So
on that note, before we get into our dedication, Saturday's event, we had a private event
yeah.
for 1,000 followers. We're 1/4 of the followers of where our guest today is at. But, crumbs, we start out somewhere. We had a private event at a distillery in Claremont, and it went absolutely amazing. The turnout was great. To everybody that showed up to support us, that's been with us for the past year and 3 months, we're so grateful, and we're in debt to you.
No,
it was
definitely.
an amazing event. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it was a good time.
was a
Got
great
a little sauced up. I had to have the wife drive us
Drive home?
Yep.
Good.
I said, nope, I am passenger princess for the night. You get to the driver's seat, ma'am. But yeah, it was such a great turnout. But as customary, we like to dedicate each and every episode to a fallen hero. And this dedication for this episode, it's going to be a little different. And usually we have a name and details regarding the fallen hero. However, our guest of the evening came up with a solid idea, and we couldn't back down from it. So we actually decided to dedicate this episode to all the officers that have died in the line of duty this year. So far, we are at 90 deaths of officers that are in the line of duty, and so we'd like to dedicate this episode to every single one of them that have passed away. May you rest in peace. And like you guys say in your line of work, you guys got it from here, right?
That's right.
So rest in peace to those 90 that
Yes.
passed away this year.
Cheers.
Rest in peace, rest in peace, cheers.
Q, those 90, that's not by gunfire, that's just a total number. We're talking about here?
Yeah, it's just a total number
In the line of duty.
In the line of duty.
deaths.
Yeah.
So
Car accidents.
I'm assuming it could be at
shootings.
TCs or shootings, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But dude, that's 90 and not even
90 too many.
90 too many, and 90 for this year so far, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, that's we're not even. Well, I mean, we just poked half going into half of the year, but 90 too many. You know, we got to look out for those that are willing to, you know, serve their community and a bigger purpose than themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, rest in peace to them.
Yeah. Cheers, brothers and sisters.
So, what are we choosing with tonight, though, Jaime?
So we deviated a little bit from our normal bourbon path, and we got a unique bourbon tonight. So one of my coworkers and friends, Chris Gutierrez, a sergeant at my department, he takes yearly trips out to Montana. He has family out there, and he's obviously knows about the podcast. So he gifted us a bottle of huckleberry flavored bourbon whiskey from a place in Montana called Glacier Distilling, and it's called Bear Proof Huckleberry Flavored Whiskey. 35% alcohol, which is 70% proof. And we took a drink, we toasted before, and the flavor profile is as it says. It's
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry.
Is huckleberry close to, like, is it like a cousin of raspberry, maybe?
It's I don't know, but I know it's native.
It's giving me like raspberry vibes. So I don't know if that was like, if that's like raspberry's southern cousin or something.
I know it's native. It's native to the area. He did tell me that, so I'll read you the little skit on the back. Glacier National Park is the home to one of the largest bear populations in the continental United States. Although known for their fierce nature, these bears have a weakness for the sweet taste of the dark purple huckleberries that dot the mountainside. You too can let your guard down and enjoy a taste of the mountains with our single malt whiskey, lovingly barrel aged and flavored with the sweet and tart juice from real hand-picked wild huckleberries. There you have it. Yeah, so it's a little bit sweeter, but I think we anticipated that with the name on the bottle. So.
Yeah, well, not just that, not the huckleberry flavored whiskey, but the fact that it's 70 proof. You know, I think this is like the lightest proof that we've had on here.
Of all the 75 bottles
yeah,
that we've drinking.
so 70. That's pretty light. That's I don't think that's enough to really put hair on your chest, but it'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah.
but it's good. It's good. It literally is what it says it is. So there's really no way around it. It's still pretty good though. I feel like this would be a really good like summer mixed drink or something. Like maybe throw like ginger
ale or something.
Like ginger ale in it or something like that. Just kind of like offset the sweetness of it maybe. Yeah, I think it can be an easy sipper in that case. But hey, thank you to
Chris Gutierrez. Thanks, Chris,
Gutierrez.
for the bottle, for gifting us a
appreciate
bottle.
it.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Much appreciated. But hi, man. Let's talk about our fine guest of the evening.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty heavy background with our guest today. Very excited to have him on. He is a Navy veteran, retired as a sergeant.
Yes.
After 24 years with the Los Angeles Police Department, where he spent half of his career working police misconduct investigations as an internal affairs investigator. And many of those cases he worked on were termination cases, which is the most extreme type of case.
Oh, wow.
That you could work administratively, you know.
So he was probably really liked.
Yes. He was also signed to the Officer Representation Section, ORS, where he represented and defended officers during scaling hearings, admin processes of officer-involved shootings, and other critical incidents. In his retirement, he works for a company called Savage Training Group, where he is a co-instructor for internal affairs and officer-involved shooting investigations, where he teaches students how to conduct internal affairs investigations. He also possesses a Juris Doctorate from Pacific Coast University School of Law,
Wow.
Wow.
And in 2023, he started a podcast called Internal Affairs, a police podcast, where on his podcast he interviews officers who have in some way, shape, or form been involved in an internal affairs investigation. And in his podcast, you really get the nitty gritty and get behind the scenes of those incidents, and they delve deep into discussions with respect to that. You might know him on Instagram at IA Capers Podcast. We're pleased to welcome Marlon Marrache.
Yeah.
That is
Welcome,
Marlon.
brother.
That is
Welcome.
That sounds so heavy,
That's
but yet so little in in all of this. Thank you. I appreciate the invite, brother. I really do.
Yeah, welcome. So we've actually never had someone on that has been a host of
A podcast.
their own podcast.
Yeah.
A podcast that has a lot more followers than our podcast has, which is great. Which is obviously a testament to the work that you're doing with your podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, we're grateful to have you on. Grateful to break some bread and
Yeah.
Very,
Let's
very
chop it up,
grateful.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what can I say besides the message is important. The platform is super important, and I think we talked before we actually pushed the record button that there will never be enough platforms for police or the military,
right.
but more so because I spent over 2 decades, right? 24, 25 years in law enforcement. And our word is just not doesn't get out as much as it should. So my thinking and my vision, for me, my belief more than anything is I can go all the way to the grave and there still will not be enough for us in law enforcement to get our word out. So, one of many reasons why I decided to, to drop the pod, man.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So have you been on other podcasts?
Yes, that's how I actually started. So when I retired in July of 2022, so it's been a little over 2 years since I retired, my first task, if you will, was, okay, let me get on LinkedIn and start figuring out the players here,
Right.
who are the heavyweights, who are not. And so I realized that internal affairs is a topic by which no one really talks about whatsoever.
True.
You can attest to that. And for all your listeners and whoever's watching, as it relates to the military, I'm willing to bet that there's probably not going to be a guest that's going to tell you about the time they went to a court martial. There's probably not going to be a guest that's going to tell you, "Hey, I got dishonorably discharged from the from the armed forces." If they do, I think that's courageous. I think it holds a lot of weight. You have me personally. I think it's a really good responsibility to able to have that message, because you never know, man. There could be some young kid that was in the Army or or in the Navy or whatever, and they got a DUI or whatever the case may be, and they might learn from your story. So I always felt like these kind of topics, and when you get in trouble, no one wants to talk about. Right. So I started going on these guests police podcasts, and I tell them, "Hey, I'm an LAPD veteran sergeant, and we can talk about IA." What? You want to talk about IA? Sure, let's do it. For a lot of reasons. One, it's one of those topics that, hey, I can't tell you much because the department really screwed me. Right? Or, if you're really honest, well, yeah, I can hold myself accountable, but I'm not going to tell you, because maybe I'm too embarrassed to tell you. So that was, and then more than anything is, on a bigger scale, is the fact that we just keep preaching transparency.
Right. Transparency.
And we're all about transparency. And you know what? You want transparency? Well, here you have it. Yeah. And so I'm very critical about my beloved LAPD's disciplinary process. It's a huge machine. We can all agree that not all machines are ran or assembled
Right.
perfect, right? So there's there's much to learn, and so that's all I ever wanted to do, and to get that message out there. And I want to say after, I don't know, maybe 10 appearances, I got a hold of the owner of Savage Training Group, and he pretty much gave me a shot to say, hey man, I don't have anybody teaching internal affairs. Is that
Wow.
something that you might want to do? I'm all sure, and so he gave me a test run over in Livermore, which is way up north. I don't even know where that's at
Right.
until I got. I mean, I know where it's at now. And here I am in front of 35. I think it was pretty sold out, man. Whole bunch of sergeants. Some officers got voluntold
Right.
to show up. Some lieutenants, a couple of command staff, and I did my thing. And next, he hired me, and here I am, about a year and a half later, and it's actually a course that's in high demand
Wow.
because uh, I really feel like there's a lot of sergeants that just need to learn how to do better investigations. I guess that's probably the best way to put it, right?
Right.
So yeah.
And I used to look at it like this: when supervisors do these investigations, when sergeants do these internal affairs investigations, they start to pick up things that they didn't know about their folks through these investigations.
Yeah.
And I always told people the time that I spent in IA, which was, a fraction of your time, that when you give supervisors internal affairs, and they always complain about them, they're like, oh, fuck, I got to do another IA investigation. But when they start working them and they start doing them, they're learning, they're enhancing their investigative skills. They're keeping accountability of their people, which is the ultimate responsibility of a sergeant, and they know where to nip things in the butt. Like, okay, I know my guys are not turning on their body worn cameras, so I'm going to go to briefing every day and tell them, hey, everybody body camera check, those type of things.
Yeah.
So it really helps an organization and enhances
Yes.
the work productivity.
Yeah, and people think that you're out to get them.
Right. Exactly.
I think for, obviously me being on the civilian side of things and listening to you guys, I think what you're doing is pretty incredible, because for someone outside looking in, or civilian, someone that has no idea of law enforcement, the general consensus is like, oh, if one cop does something bad, the department's gonna we got your back, we got your back. Whereas, IA comes into play. A lot of people don't see that side of law enforcement, where you guys are doing these investigations to hold these officers accountable.
Correct.
And say, hey, you guys are seen in a certain light. Like, let's make sure that you're holding that up.
Yep.
So I think that's incredible for what you're doing, and well, both of you guys coming from the IA side. I met Jaime when he was, I think you were already in IA when I met you, and I could just tell that it was definitely a very heavy burdened job, I should say, because
Yeah, well, the other challenge in such an assignment is, and this is just learning from teaching small agencies, more in small, medium-sized agencies, is that when you're the one who's investigating, and when you're in a small agency, everybody knows each other.
right.
Everybody knows Jaime. And so what ends up happening is the spotlight's like on you, and you have to be very, I wouldn't say careful, but you just have to be cognizant about knowing that when you turn every single stone, because I say this all the time, is no stone goes unturned. That's the type of job that you have. The biggest hurdle in doing this particular assignment is that, how do you prepare for something like this?
Right.
And that's always been the challenge. Some people just, your boss will tell you, hey, you're going to go work IA.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly.
And you can't be like, I don't want to.
And yeah, you can't tell the boss, well, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that,
Right.
And so, and to your point, when it comes to investigating your own, just want to make sure we go on the record, and I say this all the time, is that when we are talking about bad apples, we're talking about bad actors.
Yeah.
We're talking about like serious misconduct, lying, cheating, deceit, misleading statements, perjury, DVs, anything that happens at home, which is shitty because you would think that how does your conduct at home have any relation
Mm-hmm.
or nexus to your actually performance? I mean, you can be a SWATologist, badass cop, and you got a domestic violence, it goes to your character. I get all that, but those are the challenges. However, let's just make sure that when we're talking about discipline and misconduct, it's a very small fraction of the population. And when I say small, I'm talking like very, very small.
Right.
The,
Right.
the the one thing, the biggest lesson that I had learned leaving internal affairs
Mhm.
was that our police officers are doing good work.
Absolutely.
They're doing good work, and it's on body camera. They're professional with people. They're kind.
Hmm.
They're. I was so impressed leaving internal affairs. That's the one thing I told my boss when I had left. I said, the one takeaway I'm going to have here is that these cops are out here doing good work.
Yeah.
Like, they're
Yeah.
really doing good work, and it's a small fraction of a percentage
Yeah.
of those that are out there. And honestly, that's why we exist, to weed those people out.
Right.
That
Yeah.
really tarnish every
Yeah.
other cop that's doing good
Yep.
things out there.
Yeah, and then the other issue too is, I shouldn't say the issue, the challenge with an internal affairs assignment and the culture of IA is, okay. Let's just say you did violate policy or you failed to do this, neglected your duties. That's fine. People make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
but let's not throw the whole friggin' hammer at the guy.
Yep.
Right.
And that's up to
right,
the bosses.
Right.
So there's this like two-prong approach to internal affairs. You can investigate all you want and turn every single stone, and you as the investigator say, "Hey, boss, you know what? Here it is." Now, if the boss wants to turn around and say, "Hey, Jaime, it's what do you think?" I'll tell you what I think, but
Right.
9 times out of 10, even if you tell them what you feel is reasonable type of penalty, they're still going to make up their own mind and do what they want to
Right,
do. They
right.
meaning command staff, your captains,
Right.
deputy chiefs of
Chiefs.
police, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's, and in a small agency, it really sticks out badly because one actual adjudication of one complaint can really affect the impact,
Yeah.
can affect and have a major impact on the morale of the entire
absolutely.
department. So,
So let me ask you this: like, how do you approach a situation where you bring an investigation forward,
Mhm.
you have all your evidence, everything that you came up with, and you can tell that the higher up wants to, really bring down the hammer on this person,
Mhm.
and you yourself, you're like, but my investigation is showing, like, yeah, he should be disciplined for sure,
Yeah.
but not to the extent that you're doing it. Like, where do you find that balance to at
Yeah.
least, I don't want to say correct the higher up, but at least make sure your voice is heard
Yeah.
with the higher up?
you know what? Just have integrity, man, and just tell your bosses, look, man, really, really going to give this guy a 10-day suspension for this,
Right.
or, you know, something along the lines like, okay, look, this is his first offense. Why don't we just give him paper penalty, like an official reprimand, and counsel him and let him know.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and Jaime can attest to this, it doesn't even have to be an IA. A lot of agencies, especially up north, from my experience thus far, they have what they call an inquiry process, which is outstanding. It's great. It's when you have something very minor of nature where they're alleging, oh, the officer was kind of rude to me in that traffic stop, or I was at 7-Eleven, the way they looked at me and the way they stared. I like to use that example of the motor officer. He just took his glasses off, and the glare that he gave me was just
Yeah.
so rude, Okay. And you can't ignore that. I mean, you don't want to. And here's it: when you meet with the complainant, you don't want to re-victimize him and say, like, really?
Yeah,
Is that so?
yeah.
You don't. You have to be professional, respectful, and courteous. I get all that. And so those type of allegations can be handled in such a very watered down
Streamline.
way, style, right? Method,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to doing a complete full-blown internal affairs investigation where you have to notify the accused.
Right.
You have to give them the nature of the allegations, and just it. And here's the deal: that officer, especially that 2 or 3 year officer that's never even seen IA or probably hasn't even heard of IA, thinks that the world
Yeah,
is
shitting his pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The world's going to come down, and now you expect him or her to drive to come to work,
Right.
knowing that they have this heavy boulders on their shoulder because they feel like they are in complete trouble. So,
Wow.
there's a lot of emotions attached to this, and we can get to that later.
Yeah.
So I'm dying to know. You spent half your career working, which, at least to me, undoubtedly the most labor-intensive position in the department, internal affairs. You spent half your career. You're retired, and you're still teaching IAs. How did you get into internal affairs?
Good question. Someone asked me that too. How did I do this?
Because a lot of cops,
Why-
they
almost-
think about,
Yeah.
I
I
wanna
certainly
do
didn't
this
wake up and say, "Oh my
gangs
God,
and
I wanna go to
SWAT,"
IA.
How did that happen?
So I made sergeant in 2007, and then a year later in 2008, I went to go work for Commander Kyle Jackson, and I've worked in South Bureau over there in South LA, working at a community project. And so at that time, my best friend I just finished my undergrad. My best friend was egging me and really driving me to go to law school. And my brother has been a lawyer for quite some time, and he's like, "Yeah, you go to law school." And I'm thinking, no, dude, I just want to be like everybody else and just get my master's in criminal justice. I mean, what's the big deal? And it just dawned on me that, okay, let me think about this. And so at that time, Officer Representation Section, which is your union, right? It's a full-blown unit. Like, it's a whole section at LEPD, and your full-time job is to represent officers when you respond to a critical incident. So you're on the other side of the table with IA. Right. So what happens is that the attorney for the union, he or she only gets paid to represent the shooting officer, whoever was involved, the shooting officer. It can be one or two. They get paid the big bucks to do that.
Right.
Well, guess who's left with representing everyone else? All these percipient witnesses substantially involved is the actual rep from ORS. So I would have to prep, watch body-worn video, and go through this entire process, this whole scene with, let's just say, Q, you guys are both there.
Right.
Jaime is a shooter, so now I got to represent you because the attorney is just taking care of Jaime.
Right.
Once he's done with Jaime, he's out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, because LAPD has so many resources. Wait a minute, there was an airship. Oh, well, we got to find out what they saw and did. So we got to interview the tactical fight officer, the pilot. Well, who else showed up? Who saw it? We did. Okay, well, who heard it? We did. Well, who saw and heard it? We did. So it's a very extensive, detailed, with a fine-tooth comb process by which all critical incidents, OISs, officer-involved shootings being the most popular, go through. So that's where I gained that experience. And from there on, I remember I did an administrative appeal. There was this one officer who had these 2 allegations of neglect of duty, and they were sustained. And he got a paper penalty, like official reprimand. And he calls ORS and he says, "Sarge, I want to appeal this. I want to scale it. I want to appeal it because this is bullshit. That's not the way it went down." And here's what I've learned about being in this business is your best friend, like even your best friend, won't tell you everything. You only get to hear what you want to hear. Meaning, you can call me and say, "Hey, Marlon, you know what? This is bullshit. The department gave me this IA and they're after me. And now you're all disgruntled."
Yeah.
Well, what happened? Well, this is what happened. Okay, send me the complaint. Let me read the investigation from beginning to end. And so I do. And when I'm reading it, I'm thinking to myself, well, dude, you didn't tell me about these 3 paragraphs that the investigator.
It didn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, exactly. And then we start talking about how can I, defend this? How can I appeal it? Anyways, this kid, same thing. I said, read the whole thing. And this is my advice. Always been my advice. in the allegations themselves, you got to read it verbatim, right? Words have meanings. It says sustained, which means that it actually occurred. Unfounded means that it didn't happen. I know
Yeah.
you guys call it not sustained. That did not happen. Those are the two type of classifications
Right.
that you can have. Either it occurred or it didn't happen.
Right.
Now, the department is saying that this happened. So do yourself a favor and read the entire complaint and then ask yourself, did I do this?
Right.
If the answer is yes, I can't really help you out.
Yeah.
Right.
But if the answer is no, then come see me
Yeah.
and we'll do a hearing. There's a hearing officer, and it's kind of like a little mini civil trial. The internal affairs has a sergeant from the advocate section, and they'll put on their case in chief. I'll put on our case, and we'll have this hearing officer bring in witnesses and introduce evidence to see if we can overturn that sustained
Yeah.
classification. And so I did. I actually had one where he goes, "This is not the way it went down." I go, "Okay." So I started reading it. I'm all, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, this everything that they said I did. They're saying that I was on the back house involved in the use of force." He goes, "Sarge, I wasn't even in the back house. I was on the street with the ambulance waiting for the officers to get him in a gurney."
Oh,
So
wow.
basically, this complaint was just poor,
Yeah.
marginal at best. So whoever the investigating officer was didn't do a good job and just left a lot of information out. So we ended up going to filing an appeal with internal affairs. We presented the case, and the hearing officer ruled in our favor, in the defense.
Wow.
And at the time that happened, there has only been 3 admin appeals that have been overturned by Chief Bratton in his 7-year term
Right.
Wow.
as a chief of police, and I was one of them.
Wow.
Wow.
And so a couple of months go by, and the lieutenant from Internal Affairs says, "Hey, man, I got some spots coming up, and I would love to have you here. You were professional, we're courteous." And at that time is when I decided to go to law school, and I was already in my first year in law school. And I pretty much made up my mind in 2008, 2009 that at some point later on in my career, I'm going to end up getting in the world of discipline and defending cops.
Yeah.
And that's the short end of the story. So when you ask me how I got to internal affairs, they advertised a Sergeant 2 spot, which is kind of like a promotion. It's an upgrade. And I went into the interview and he offered it to me. Now, the unique part is that I went straight into this section where all we do is just put on these hearings. So I didn't investigate. I wasn't an investigator.
Right.
I just got the final product.
Ah, gotcha.
And I recall the lieutenant telling me, "Hey, Marlon, when you come up here, don't think of this as a prosecutorial role." I call bullshit. I'm prosecuting cops, and I got to tell you, man, with my personality, it just didn't fit. I'm very high energy, love to laugh. If we joke, humor is the best in this profession. And I got to tell you, when we were up in the Bradbury building, the 5th floor, where we do all the hearings, it's dark, bro.
Yeah.
It's not fun,
Yeah.
especially watching one of your colleagues, right, one of your
Yeah.
partners about to lose it all,
Wow.
especially with a false statement. So it was an eye opener for me. So
Yeah.
that's how I got to the IA, and then I stayed there for 5 years. But I love being an RS so much that I went back for a second tour
Wow.
before I retired. So
Wow.
yeah, I'll defend a cop any day, man. And I say that with, my chest high and all pumped up, because I'd be the first one to tell you that we do it to ourselves. We
Absolutely.
are not very good at making decisions, to your point, about how do we handle.
Right. Right.
And unfortunately, and you can attest to this, Simon, is that what bothered me the most is that it becomes self-serving as it goes up the chain to make a decision. Probably no any different than when you were in,
Army.
when you were in the Army, which, by the way, stands for ain't ready to be a Marine yet. That's what I was told.
Aren't you in the Navy?
Never
What
again
do you-
volunteer yourself. That's what I was told.
Never
That's
heard
what the Navy's. That's what I was told when I got to my aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf.
I was beginning to like you too. That's
I had you at hello. Is that what you're trying to say?
exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I always like asking people, internal affairs investigators or guys that have worked internal affairs, guys and gals that have worked internal affairs, because I always like to share my story too. Usually, it's a position that somebody asks you to apply
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be honest with you, and I would tell you that I would be concerned if I had a cop that was like, "I'm dying to work internal affairs."
Yes. Yes.
I would be very concerned
Yes.
if we had a cop like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, we don't right now. So,
Right.
Anyways, at the time I was a detective bureau sergeant, and the sergeant that was internal affairs was leaving the unit. He did a short stint in there and was leaving for some personal reasons. And one of the captain at the time, who's since been retired, he came to me and said, "Hey, I need you to put in for this detail."
Yeah.
And I remember telling the captain, I said, "You know what you're asking me, right? If I put in for internal affairs, my days of working the street are over.
Yeah.
Because chances are, as long as I don't fuck up in internal affairs,
Yep.
I may get promoted out of there. It's a good chance I'll get promoted out of there."
Correct.
So I said, if I go there, my street days are over. He's like, "Listen, man, you've had a good career, and honestly, in police work, all
Yeah.
good things
Yeah.
you can't, at least not for a medium-sized agency like us. It's not like, I'm not sure, like Sheriff's Department, you could stay in a detail forever.
Yeah.
Yes. Same
In
with
my department,
LAPD.
you can't be a gang cop your entire career.
Yeah.
You, At some
Doesn't
point,
work
you're
that
going to
way.
get rotated out. You go back
Yeah.
to patrol, whatever the case. So they asked me, and I really had to mull it over for a good week.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I said, you know what? If I want to keep moving up in my career, this is probably going to be a wise decision. So I went. I took the position, and it was a lot of stress in that position because of the amount of work and just how the small size of the unit.
Yeah.
But I most certainly learned a lot being in that position.
It's the most stress that I've ever dealt with. And it's an emotional roller coaster. And interestingly enough, not many get to ask me this question. And to be quite honest with you, even at the time, so if I were to reflect, like at the time that I took the job, I don't think I ever thought about like what it was going to be like. What I will tell you is the culture in LAPD is you're a Sergeant 1, which is your 3 stripes, right? So they have a Sergeant 2 position. So that's what we call an upgrade, which is when you get your rocker, right? And so rockers are very hard to come by, especially when you have over thousands of sergeants in the department, right? You're not going to get an assistant watch commander at the division because they're going to give it to one of those hardworking sergeants inside.
Sure.
And so for me, this was an opportunity to get my rocker. So I want to say my thinking at the time was, hey, I get the upgrade and I get more money because I already have an admin job and I love doing this, but I'm really going to the other side.
Yeah.
And that fitted with, okay, hold on a second. I'm in law school and it'll probably help because I get to learn trial advocacy, right? Mute court and, learn some law.
Right.
And here's the shittiest part is we're the only agency that has this border rights process. And so a lot of the board members and even the attorneys on the other side of the table look at the sergeant like who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
Exactly. You don't know any better.
Right.
So they start citing with the attorney objection, relevancy or objection misstates the, So you start getting into this world of technicality as it relates to rules of evidence and just a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo that you didn't think you were going to get into. But to your point, it's the most that I ever learned. So when I do become a watch commander, I'm back out in the streets. There's not one type of incident that I haven't read or felt where someone cut corners or someone didn't learn. And so that's the lessons learned. Because you know how to pretty much separate what's bullshit, what's real serious, and what's
Right.
really, really minor. And unless you don't have that experience, you're not going to know. And it was quite a ride, bro.
I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
We're a podcast, obviously, on mental health and PTSD and
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And I know being in IA for those 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
Q, you could attest to this, that it was an emotional roller coaster with
Mm-hmm.
stress and just.
Yes.
I did it for 4 years. You did it for half of your career. How did that, or did it, take a toll on you? And how did you learn to manage that stress for so long?
It it's kind of like it's more implicit than it is expressed. So it's kind of like I never really said, hey, this is really affecting me. To this very day, watching someone, I mean, out of the 30 plus of these hearings in this border rights platform, that I did, 5 of those were actually termination cases. And to this very day, I still think about those decision makings that they made, and they lost everything and they got fired.
Yeah.
Right? How did I deal with it? Well, what I will tell you is, as long as I got my little workout here and there, as long as I was playing soccer, that's all I cared about. That to me was a way of coping.
Sure.
But I never really had a chance to seek help, because I'm taking you back to 2011 when I started. I can tell you with certainty in 2011, mental wellness is not what it is today.
No, absolutely not.
One, two, mental wellness, when we think of that particular subject matter, we think about partners being lost in the line of duty. We think about suicidal ideation. We think about someone who's heavily on drugs, alcohol abuse. Those are your typical symptoms, or the typical type of help that you seek when it
Sure.
comes to mental wellness. But no one talks about discipline. And so it's at the forefront now.
Right.
And have that, for all of you who are listening or watching and you're getting into internal affairs and you have a heavy load, and it just so happens to be that when you're there, a lot of people are just getting in trouble and
Right.
you're dealing with it. You know what? Go get help.
Yeah.
Go have a session or two and just kind of vent a little.
I wish to God that I would have done that in the beginning of my stint, and I had been able to like decompress.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's one of the reasons the whole podcast
Yeah.
got started. Was
Yeah, because you were still in IA when we started
Yeah.
this, right?
I was still, and I got promoted.
Yeah. When was this? When did you start?
So I got promoted in February of this year to lieutenant.
Okay.
And I got taken out of the unit. It's only a sergeant spot for us.
Right.
But I was in IA 4 years for the 4 years prior.
Okay.
to that.
So yeah. So you're still looking at what, 2018 ish,
Yeah.
2019.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, when you think of mental wellness, is hey, my partner just committed suicide,
Yeah.
or I have a heavy drinking problem.
Yeah.
I'm having problems at home. Those are your typical mental wellness type of issues that you will confront. But not someone who's saying they're going, you know what, these cases are really, you know what, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And I'd be the first one to tell you, there was nights I couldn't
Oh,
sleep
me too. Oh,
at
tons
all.
of nights.
I'd be up Sunday nights preparing all my exhibits, dude, and just thinking to myself, fuck, dude, how do I do this opening argument? I'm going to say this. I got to say that. I can't forget about this. And it's just, I mean, a lot of stress. Now that I reflect, it just, would have been nice to talk to someone.
I used to tell him specifically, my weekend was Friday to Sunday at about 2:30. At about 2:30 on Sunday, the work mode would hit me, and I would start thinking about my cases, and my attitude would change. And I would come into the gym and people were like, "Oh, he's having a day. Let's leave him alone."
Yeah.
Like literally, I was giving off this energy that like people were like,
Yeah.
"I just don't want to like." Be
Oh no,
around him
100%,
right now."
100%.
And I, you know what, I hated myself for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess to that point, my advice would be to people going into this type of assignment, yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to somebody because it's a lot, you know.
One, spot on. Communicate as much as you can. You know, my daughter, at the time, I was a single dad. I tried to have a relationship with my girlfriend at the time. That was difficult. The fact that I had to put on these cases, not spending time with my daughter, and to top it all off, had to work overtime. You know, I was one of those cops that depended on supplemental income.
Yeah.
Hey, man, 60 to 70% of the department depends on supplemental income, and I was one of those.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you ever? Was there a point or a specific event that happened where it made you realize, like, okay, I really need to prioritize my mental health, my emotional well-being because of the job?
you know, that's a good question. I wouldn't say so much my mental well being. I think I was done 2 years ago. I started realizing that this is not what I want to do anymore. Meaning, waking up every single day, come here and chase the carrot and work a overtime shift 2:33 in the morning. I'm in my 50s. My energy wasn't completely there.
Yeah.
I wasn't completely motivated. Okay, I can study for the lieutenant exam, and then I ask myself, do I really want to be a lieutenant? I'm out of my comfort zone because I left from transit services, which is your MTA. So we had the contract. We took the contract from the sheriffs
Oh, okay.
in 2017. So I worked, basically, I was the complaint coordinator for the entire city of Los Angeles. So every complaint
Wow.
that you made, whether it happened on the train line or a bus, it landed at my desk. So I inherited like 100 cases
Damn.
in my queue. So I was rolling, and I just felt like I'm very good at this. I'm comfortable. Do I want to keep driving from the San Fernando Valley 818? I live in the 405 and the 118 in Granada Hills, all the way to downtown with the
Oh,
traffic. Yeah, and majority of my career was in downtown LA, and so I started getting burnt, man.
yeah.
And then I started reflecting on my career and thinking to myself, okay, 20 years you've been working overtime, Marlon. And in those 20 years, what did you get out of that? Now, I got a divorce and a lot of time away from my daughter.
Ooh.
And so that's when I started saying, you know what? I'm a risk taker. I roll the dice. Well, you shouldn't leave because you should do the drop program. You know, you're going to leave a lot of money on the line. There's a specific deferred retirement program where you lock in your pension and you're double dipping, but you can
Right.
only do it for 5 years.
Ah.
And everybody does it. The average officer walks away with $500,000 after the 5 years. Yeah, it's good money.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I said I'm not going to do this anymore. I started thinking to myself, okay, look, I graduated from law school in 2016. I already took the bar a couple of times. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll figure something out, but I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so since I'm really passionate about helping out cops, you know what? I'll go make some money.
Right.
I'll figure out how to make money somewhere else, but just have more time to myself, more time to my daughter, my family,
Yeah.
and healthy, dude. You know, don't let all this fool you, dude. I'm 55 years old, bro. This olive oil that I've been putting on since I was 19 years old, it's
I was gonna say you
It's
look
a-
young, man.
Yeah, I was
hey,
gonna say,
man, that's
you
a
look
misconception,
young,
bro.
bro.
It's all deceiving.
It's a facade.
It's a facade. It's a facade because if there's one thing that I definitely wanted out of the city of Los Angeles is to pay me for my pension for a very, very long time. And people know you'll know when you leave.
Yeah.
You'll have that feeling. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your point. I want to say I just got burnt, man.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I don't want to promote
Yeah.
because it's not the job that I want. And what I'm going to do, leave here and go to the streets and be a patrol sergeant?
Yeah.
I suppose I can do that, but I've been there and done that. So
Yeah, but I mean, it's that's good that you realized that before you actually even like crashed and burned. 'Cause
Yes.
then there probably would have been even more detriment to your health, your relationships that you're trying to build
Yes.
up, things like that. And
Yeah.
you had brought up the double dipping thing that some officers do, where after
Mm-hmm.
double dipping they walk away with almost $500,000. And what I wanted to ask to that is like, but how many of them are truly happy and in a
Yeah.
really good place in life where they can walk away with those $500,000
Right.
and be like, ah, my life is good.
Yeah, some
know?
do, some don't, but I will tell you the drop program is a lot of people, well, the smart people, I don't know, maybe you can call me dumb, but the smart people don't leave that money on the table.
Right.
Two, some are not ready to go because their kids are in college and they got to pay for college, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
You know, guys like us, we don't have to because we have that service connection disability. You know, 90%, I'm not going to lie, I'm trying to get to 100.
Hey,
But they
same
gave me
brother.
90.
Same brother.
Let's talk after.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, great income on the side. Tax free. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, yeah, some do, some don't. Look, if you came on at 21, you're set, dude.
Yeah.
You can do 30 years and be 50
Yeah.
and cash out, man. Yeah, you're gonna be loving life, you know. But for me, it was more. I came on late. I was 29, almost 30 years old. But for me, my decision making was, yeah, I got an ego, but more than anything, I wanted to just give back to the next generation, and I want it to be relevant.
Yeah.
And so the podcast and things that I'm doing is my way of giving back to the next generation.
Nice.
But I will tell you this though, if it wasn't for me retiring, I probably wouldn't be here and develop all these relationships with
Yeah.
both of you or anyone else that I have met thus far in this journey, and that's probably been the most rewarding.
Nice.
You know, or else I'd be, I don't know,
Driving
the officer as a
downtown
watch
LA.
commander, you know, taking care of my guys, which is fine. I'm all about that. But there's more to it than just that.
Yeah.
Of course.
You know, so
If 2 questions.
yes.
One, if you could go back and change something, what would you have changed in your career?
Ooh, I knew that was coming. Probably spent more time working. Suppose not be so quick and knee jerk, if you will, for certain assignments. I think if I would have worked the streets a little longer, it would have benefited me more. That's probably it.
How so, you think?
Because the culture kind of dictates, you know, how you are viewed in a big department like LAPD. There's a lot of egos, man, and you know, some will say, "Oh, you're just an admin dude,
Yeah.
and you don't have enough street time. You don't have enough street cred.
Street creds.
And if you don't work the South End, you don't work 77, Southward, Southeast, or Newton, then you're nothing. What?
Right.
You work the Valley, you know." So I suppose if I were to do it, if there's one thing that I would have done more, I probably would have liked to have worked the mothership, 77 patrol, and just, you know, and hey, man, you know what? I own it. I have no problem owning that.
Yeah.
Hey, and whoever's your LAPD listeners and your watchers out there, it's that's just the way it is.
Right.
That is a true cultural phenomenon, if you will. That, hey, man, I work the South End, and you just work the Valley.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's kind of, I feel like the military has that mindset too.
Same
you know,
thing.
you don't have a combat deployment. A lot of people are like,
Yes.
you know, and I think it takes a while for you to get out of that mentality, because I was like that when I first came back from Afghanistan. Is like, if I didn't see a combat patch on someone's shoulder, I was like, dude, like, what are you doing in that uniform? Like, you're waste of time, waste of space. Now, looking back at it, it's like, you know, we all have a story. We all have dealt with our own issues, and having a combat patch. We've said this before, where, you know, some of us would give back the combat patch to not deal with a lot of the mental issues and a lot of the PTSD stuff that, you know, you come home with. So yeah, I agree with that 100% with that mindset.
having reflect, not so much that culture thing. I'm going to top myself. I'm going to one up myself
I like it.
with that question. FTO. I wish I would have had probationers. I made FTO, but 2 months later I got promoted to sergeant. So I never really trained
Right.
probationers. That's one regret that I had. Hey man, I took the test, the sergeant test early. Dude, I only had like 5-6 years on, and they held the list because there was some lawsuit going on. And next thing you know, at my 9-year mark, I made it. As a matter of fact, I want to say out of my class, my academy, I was the first person to make sergeant. And that was a rude awakening. So if I were to turn the clock back, I definitely would have loved to have been a full-fledged FTO.
I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because that's when you get an opportunity to really influence and impact someone young. Because that's when I get to actually be me and teach you of the things that I didn't like about from my FTOs. You know how it is when you're on probation, dude. I've had some great FTOs, but there were some that were just like, they were kind of like assholes, bro.
Oh yeah.
And I was never an asshole. It's really hard for me to be an asshole. I don't. Now that I'm thinking more about it, when it comes time to perform, whether you're salty or you're just quiet, hey dude, I just need you to step up when it's time to step up.
Right.
But let's have fun because I don't want to put you in a learning environment and stress you out. You're already fucking stressed out as it is.
Right.
And when I'm yelling at you, kind of like in the Navy, same thing. Boot camp, whatever. It's just so that's the reason why, is because I get to influence and have an impact on that one young person, and I get to look and say, okay, check this out, dude. This is how we're going to do things, and I get to do it my way.
That's such a great point. I'll share a quick story that this just happened about a week ago, and I hope nobody from my department listens because they're probably going to think I'm a geek if they hear this. But one of the officers was working overtime assignment, and he had caught a gangster with a gun, and it's always in my department, like when guys get guns, it's the thing. It's like, it's
That's
like
right.
you win the gold, you got a gun.
Yes.
And good for them. I mean, it makes them
Absolutely,
motivated.
100%.
So he's a veteran police officer. He got a gun on his overtime assignment, and I had texted him, and I said, "Hey, good job. You way to kill it out there." And he had said, "I learned it. I learned best from my Phase 4 FTO, which I was his Phase 4 FTO." So I was like, all right, man, I'm not going to cry.
Oh, my God.
There's a little twinkle in my eye. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, bro. But to what you were saying is that's the like,
Yes.
man, I help mold people in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Like,
you have an impact.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, that FTO spot, arguably, I should say, probably the most impact you can have on the young officers.
Absolutely.
I truly believe, and I say this a lot too, is sergeant is the best spot in any department.
Of course. Agreed.
Because you're right in the middle.
Right.
Right? You're getting the orders, but you have an impact on the rank and file and your subordinates. That's and I say this a lot too in LEPD. This happens in the military too. Bro, you get it like an SME, like you're an expert in something, they're going to fucking leave you alone, dude. No one is going to bother you. Nobody. It's lieutenant is not the taser expert.
Right.
It's the sergeant bro, if that sergeant who's a taser expert in LEPD just says, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm out. Like on Monday, whoa. Hold on a second. What do you need, bro? You can't leave because the captain's going to say, well, you got to step up and do it. You're like, I don't know. I don't know anything about tasers.
Right.
I mean, I don't know the order, the testing phase, how to deploy. That's when you start gaining expertise.
Yeah.
They'll leave you alone. They really will. You're replaceable, and you can agree to that. I mean, right? I mean, that probably goes in the military too. You specialize in something, dude, and someone pisses you off. Be careful because they're gonna be like, you can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
I heard stories lately because we're so shorthanded with police officers applying. I just heard not too long ago that in an agency, they want a lateral to another agency, but they're holding up the process to get to the other agency. They'll say, well, you have an IA and it's open. Perfect example. You have an open complaint. And they'll drag it on because they don't want you to leave yet.
Yep.
Hoping that you would change your mind.
Right.
If I do not change your mind, I'm going to Torrance for $100,000, you know, 100K, man. That's where I'm going.
Or if we sustain him, he can't go anywhere.
Yeah. There you go. You just, sorry, can't go.
Yeah, sorry, you can't go. So, okay. How did this lead into the podcast? How did this lead into Internal Affairs podcast?
The conversations in the class in Savage Training Group that we were having in Internal Affairs, I felt that a lot of these conversations we were having during break, I needed to put it in a platform. That was kind of like what hit the light bulb. Unfortunately, at the time that I thought about this in 2023, I did double dip, so I'm guilty of that. I spent 1 year at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, and they offered me a lieutenant spot. And my ego got the best of me, thinking that this lieutenant spot was going to lead into the chief of police spot. To make the long story short, it didn't work out at all. I spent 1 year, and last November, I quit. I resigned. And so during that year in 2023 where I was teaching is when I started getting this idea about doing a podcast. You know what? This content's unique. No one's really talking about all this. So why don't I just start it? And I think people are going to be like, the hell is this guy doing? Internal affairs? You know, what is he, the Rat Squad? You know. And so my first episode was my ex-boss, who worked internal affairs, and he worked the surveillance unit. And he was part of that Stephanie Lazarus case way back when. This is a female detective LAPD who killed her ex-boyfriend.
Oh.
And after 20-something years later, through DNA, they found out that she is a suspect.
Wow.
Yes. And so my boss worked in that surveillance squad following her, getting DNA samples and all that. So that was the idea, was to just give me an IA story, right? But I'm thinking to myself, well, who's going to come in here and like give an IA story, right? Well, all these retirees are going to do it. And since, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I had a great reputation, good personality. Even though I worked IA and I probably didn't end up having that many friends, I never even looked at it that way. No one really said, we're breaking up. I never heard a friend of mine say, well, you're going to IA and we're going to break up.
Well, I don't know. After that Army comment, I think we broke up. So.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm still holding on to it.
Yeah, and I'll give you about 20 minutes or so.
You'll win him back over.
Yeah, I'll win you back. Yeah, the charm, you just can't get rid of it. It's too deadly. And so what ends up happening is it's just a conversation that's so curious, and I decided to do it, and here we are. We were talking earlier. We're in month 7 months later, and we're at 800,000 views, dude. Almost, we're projected to get to 1 million views. My first episode launch was in December, so I still have, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
That's
incredible.
Did you have any camera time before that? And
I was a PIO.
Okay.
I worked as a spokesman for the LAPD Spanish. I did for the chief. I worked on media for about 2 years. I just had this idea, and in the beginning was, hey, let's just kind of make it organic, natural, and just have a conversation. Mm-hmm. But then what I started realizing as a podcaster is, as a host, and this is just me, I like to have some structure
Yes.
and be somewhat formal and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
thus far, man, we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the stories are just, the way I describe it, they're just rich in content. I mean, it is so good.
That's awesome.
And some are very. What I didn't know that I was going to become that wellness doctor. Call me Dr. Marrache. There has been episodes where people have walked in and they revisit something that they had in the past, and pretty much broke down, get
Yeah.
emotional. I had a maximum security correctional officer that worked Corcoran. I forgot where he worked, but hardcore level 4, who was an alcoholic when he was 23, 24 years old. So he went into being a cop as an alcoholic, and
Oh
after
wow.
everything he saw, it got even worse. And so in the episode, he says something along the lines like, "You know what, Marlon? I would drink every money that someone would help me, even when I relapsed. I just had to go buy a bottle of vodka." And it got to the point where I didn't know how to live and I didn't know how to die. And he's been sober for 9 years, and now he runs a multi-million-dollar operation for sober livings. He's got like 6, 7 sober livings for people who are recovering addicts and alcoholics. So just stories like that are, to your point, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't project a lot of these stories in the podcast
Yeah.
because all I wanted was just an IA story.
Right.
And by the way, the IA story has to have some takeaways.
For sure.
It's got to have some lessons learned.
Yeah.
I haven't had a guest come in and vent or have an axe to grind. And I haven't had, I've turned down some who have called me and they wanted to come on the pod because knowing my personality and knowing what I know about how my audience is, it's just, you're not going to gain out of talking shit about how the department did you wrong. We can talk about the accountability of the department.
Right.
I have no problem with that, but we have to do it in a very professional, respectful way. But to your point, the common theme has been it's just a process.
Yeah.
You could agree that when someone gets IA'd, it's the end of the world.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes even when you're at fault, you'll take accountability. You know what? I know it's going to be sustained. I know I fucked up, but having to wait to get that phone call or that email and get called into the captain's office, that wait is super, super stressful.
Yeah. Incredibly
And yet
stressful.
you want me to have a bright smile and go to work and, you know, chase the radio, you know, and push the sled. It's what I call it. Right? So it's the same thing in the military. Same exact thing. You can be in a squadron and something goes wrong and you're expected to go to work and just act like it doesn't really bother you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yet it's just hanging on you. So
Yeah.
that's why I did it. I did it because there's so much to learn about this misconception. They really think that internal affairs is this evil entity.
Right.
This is before, I mean, I'm taking you back to like probably the 1960s, dude. And that was one of my main goals is how can we get rid of this negative stigma of internal affairs?
Right.
It's 2024 and we still think that you're evil,
Right.
you know, that you're the dark side, you know,
Yeah.
you're out to get me.
Right.
So one of the questions I ask all my guests right off the bat is, what was your first impression when you first came on the job? Here you're in the academy. Did someone come in and say, "Hi, I'm from internal affairs. Let me tell you what my duties and responsibilities are." Chances are that probably didn't happen.
Right.
I've met one that I met a New Yorker said, "Oh yeah, you know what? They came in and they told me that this was fucking internal affairs." You know, anybody that I've here in California, I haven't heard one.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, and when I went to the academy in July of 1998, they didn't come in and tell me anything.
Yeah.
But then again, I get it. And even if they did come in and have like a 2-hour block, I still probably wouldn't have paid attention because all I want to do is just fucking graduate.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the questions I ask because that's important. It's like, who told you that they're so evil? Was it your FTOs or old school guys that said, "Hey, don't go talk to those people," right? And so that's how we start these conversations, and that's one of several reasons. That, the function, the process, how you get treated, and educational as well. Senate Bill 2, I get to talk about SB 2. What is this thing? And sometimes I'll break down videos like, really? You're going to go and do this? And the problem is that cops think that we're evil,
Right.
even our own, right?
Right.
It's the way we treat each other. But when I break down something about someone driving a female arrestee to get her booked, and you just happen to jump in the back seat and lock yourself with her arrestee in the back seat,
I know what you're talking about.
you know,
Yeah.
and then you turn off your body worn camera, and you leave your phone in the front, and you're calling your boy through your Apple Watch, saying, "Hey, bro, I need your help. Can you please come to my location?" Okay, but what's going on? I can't tell you because I'm too embarrassed, but you need to get here now. You know, okay, well, here you have it, man. That's not the department coming after you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's just you making some bonehead dumb decisions.
So
That's to answer your question.
I had always, when I got there, I had a really, really good partner. That actually, when he got promoted, he actually ended up taking over professional standards.
Nice.
Just a great, great, great partner. And the way that we used to work, and I don't know how this was originally started, but whenever we would put somebody on admin leave, we would wear suit and ties. We come into work, I'm at a desk like polos,
desk
or
casual.
Yeah.
Business
casual.
casual.
But when we put someone like on admin leave or something,
Yeah.
we go intercept them at the back door. We'd always be in suit and ties, and it caught on eventually.
yeah.
So every time we came to the station in suit and ties, people were like, "Fuck, someone's getting." They were like, rumors would spread. I'd start getting text messages within like 2 minutes, like,
Always.
"Hey, who you guys putting on admin leave?" So because it spread like a wildfire,
Everybody knows.
our deputy chief said, "Hey, when we put people on admin leave now, you guys are no longer going to be in suits because people are just they
Yeah.
get scared."
Yes.
So after that, I remember, and I had told Q this a couple times, that I would go to court and stuff, and I would fuck around with the cops. I would go upstairs like the detective bureau and my suit. Just this was for court purposes. This was nothing else, and just to see the people, they'd highlight the
Spin.
rumors. And I would go into like somebody's office. At one time, I went into one of the homicide detectives who's actually getting ready to retire, and his name is Greg Freeman, and he would laugh at this story. But I went in there and with a stone face, a suit and tie, and I said, "Greg, I need to talk to you." And he was like, he had these fucking eyes that just like burst, and he was like, "Who, me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need to talk to you." And he was like, "Fuck, okay." And I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm just fucking with you, dude." And they were like, the whole office was like, just let out a roar. They were laughing so
Yes.
loud because he like almost shit his pants and like. But I wanted to bring like, hey man, look. I know I work internal affairs, but like I'm still Jaime.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
You know.
And I would say this: my advantage was I worked at a smaller agency,
Yes.
so it was a little bit different for me because people kind of know my personality. Whereas at a bigger agency, they may
They don't
not
know
know
you.
you.
They
The
don't
only thing
know
they
you at
know
all.
about you is you're the IA
Yeah.
guy.
They don't. Yeah. Exactly.
You know.
That's one of the things that is the challenge on a big agency. It's to the point where you say, "Hey, dude, if you don't have an IA and they're not around, so don't even worry about it."
Yeah.
But the problem with saying that is, if they are around and they know, then it's oh shit, and in reality, it's not really oh shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I had a guest come on saying he's from Texas, who's active. He's an active sergeant. He actually is a host of a podcast.
Oh, wow.
Very, very popular
Oh, nice.
podcast. He's big, and he said he had an IA, but they never told him, and they exonerated him.
Right.
They told him after they investigated and they adjudicated, like, "Hey, just to let you know, we were investigating you because of this, this, and this." So then I had to ask
no
him. I
idea.
said, "Hey, man, just out of curiosity, do you prefer it to be that way, or wouldn't you like to know?" Because I'm in the mindset that I need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people don't need to know, but to the point, including him, he said, and he's a 17-year veteran. He goes, "Had they would have told me, I would have been driving to work just fucking stressed out."
Yeah, so in
Yeah.
our department we don't. If it's like a smaller case where we don't need to interview somebody because it's obviously it's a bullshit complaint or whatever
Yes,
the case
demonstrably
is.
false.
Yeah, we don't notice. We don't need to interview them. We
That's
don't notice
good.
them. Everything was on body camera. They'll just get a disposition letter and they're like, what happened?
Yeah,
Then we'll tell them afterward, hey, somebody made a complaint about you for this, and we didn't need to interview you. We try to save people from the stress. But I could see both sides of it. People were like, man, you
I
should've
agree.
told
There's
me.
two different.
There's
Yeah,
two different sides of it.
What you didn't,
Yeah.
Jaime? What's up, bro? Oh,
Yeah.
what else are you hiding from?
Yeah,
me,
what else
Jaime?
you-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, it just, and it kind of goes also with we ask in class, do you think the job in IA investigators to protect cops? That's the question we ask. You don't have to answer. We'll ask you when you come on my show. But it's a question.
Organization.
Because here's the deal. And I'll be the first one to tell you, yes, a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but some raise their hand. It's a good conversation.
Right.
So again, all these conversations were happening in class. I had to put it on a YouTube platform
Yeah.
more than anything, or just on a social media platform. But if you say yes, because you're doing everything to exonerate that cop,
Yeah.
your colleague, your buddy, whatever. Okay, congratulations. Here's a child molester, child pornography case, sexual assault of another officer. Well, wait a minute. Well, you just got done saying your job is to protect cops.
Right.
So good luck. So you got to be careful with answering that. The way you should answer is something along that, yes, but it's to protect the actual process.
Yeah.
I'll do anything, and I'll turn every single stone to ensure that what they're complaining is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I'm here to tell you more often than not, what the public complains about is not. It didn't happen.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask, actually both of you guys, since you guys have both worked this detail, and whichever one could go first. However, how do you balance between holding your professionalism and then trying to show empathy for a brother or sister who you've fought alongside with, and show them that empathy of like, I also want to make sure that you're being taken care of. Like, where is that balance?
Very good question. I would answer something along the lines like, even if you screwed up royally to the point where it's serious misconduct, I'm still going to be by your side. That's just me. I'm one to walk you and hold you by the hand and go through the dark alley together.
Okay.
Hey, Q, look, we can't talk much about it, but you want to go have a beer and, whatever you need, let me know.
Yeah.
Hey, Q, in 2 weeks, Jaime is going to be getting this case assigned. Give him about 2 or 3 weeks. He should be scheduling your interview. Hey, Q, your interview is going to be on such and such date. Hey, Q, you know what? Jaime just got done turning in the investigation, so it's going to go for the next level review. Hopefully you'll hear something in about 2 weeks. Hey, Q, you know what? The lieutenant and the captain actually has it, and chances are it's going to be presented to the chief like in about 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Q, it got presented to the chief of police. You should be hearing something.
Yeah.
Well, Marlon, man, what if it comes back, sustained and I'm going to get suspension or they terminate you? You know what, brother? Let the chips fall where they may. It's complete out of your hands. It's out of my hands. But if you need me, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That's what's missing in this particular assignment.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah, agreed.
Where we keep people in the dark. We're not good at communicating.
Yeah.
And when you're in a small agency, everybody knows.
Right.
Everybody knows that Q is in trouble. Some people in that small agency probably heard that Q beat down his wife and got booked. And, and is an alcoholic.
Right.
And did drugs. When in reality, something happened, but not to that extent.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So the rumors start happening.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that we do it to ourselves. How we treat each other is key.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And in this assignment, we don't do a good job of treating one another.
Yeah. What about
That's
you,
true.
Jaime?
Yeah, we always had this saying. Me and my partner adopted. We call balls are balls and strikes are strikes.
Yes.
Our job is we're fact finders. That's what my job is. I don't issue out discipline. My job is just to find facts, and if the facts are there, or there's 51% of the facts,
Yes.
because we work off of preponderance,
Right.
which is 51% or above. It's likely that you did it.
Right.
We kind of use that standard, and to his point, is I always put a human perspective on it, right? Because historically speaking, in departments, IA are the guys that are like, people come and like people are like, oh, they're running out the hallways and going, they got to use the restroom all of a sudden. And I wanted to put a human face on that. Like I didn't want. I'm fortunate because I had worked number of details and I had worked as a street cop, so I think once I got into internal affairs later in my career, the cops were like, all right, he was a cool dude. Like we know Jaime, he's a good dude. And even during that time, there was cops that were like, man, Jaime, could you at least try to pick up my case and you handle my case? And or they would be like, dude, I'm fucking stressing this out. Like, you think I'm gonna get fired? Or I'm like, listen, I don't know what the chief's gonna do, but I can tell you this: if it was that serious, you'd probably be on admin leave right now, right? Because the way the way our department works is if you fuck up something royally, they're gonna put you on admin leave.
Yep.
So I'm like, if you're not on admin leave, you probably live to tell another day, but you know what I mean? Just ride the wave. So I always put like a humanistic, try to be human with people and not not let the role define me.
Correct.
Because so many times, in an IA position, there comes a little bit of power, right? But it's not the individual that has the power; it's just the role that has it. Because you're the IA guy, you get privy to stuff that's behind the curtains.
Yep.
The chief, consults you often on stuff and takes your advice on stuff, and so there is a little bit of power that comes with that. But as long as you remember that it goes with the role and not with the person,
100%.
you don't let it get to the head. Then I think that I could say that even though I dealt with a lot of stress in the 4 years, that I left where people were like, yeah, dude, you didn't come out different. You weren't completely jaded. You didn't. They didn't jade you.
Well, let me kind of still pick you guys' brains. So, law enforcement, just like the military, is very tribalistic, very brotherhood, sisterhood, things like that. How do you guys find the peace of mind of carrying that burden that you're going from this? I have my tribe of my guys in my squad to now I'm working IA, and I'm the guy that's getting kind of shunned out, kind of getting pushed to the side, and you're almost like this lone wolf now in the pack. How do you guys find that, carrying that almost burden or just that heaviness?
To Tommy's point, I never really felt empowered by this position at all. I didn't feel entitled. If anything, I'm trying to exonerate you. That's what I'm trying to do. That's probably the way to put it. But again, I can't just be exonerating every single case that I get, because, like I said earlier, you might get that case that's like a sexual assault or a child predator. You're like, I'm not trying to.
I can't really defend that.
I'm not trying to exonerate that.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful with that. I suppose. For me, it wasn't really hard because we're separated from. I come from big agency. I mean, at one point it was 10,200.
Right.
And there was over 350. I think it was I'll take that back. North of 400 assigned to internal affairs. That's a lot, and we're in our own building, so it didn't impact me as it relates to my colleagues.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, you're a small agency. That's different because you're at work and they all know you're the IA guy.
Yeah. So then, what about?
So you can call me the IA guy.
Well, I think I was in a good spot at the time because when I was in IA, I also had a collateral assignment on SWAT. So I was one of our team leaders on SWAT at the time.
Oh.
And so I was still around the guys, and I remember pre-IA, I would joke around. I would joke around with the guys. I'd crack jokes. Post-IA, I'm like, okay, I got to be careful what I say with my jokes. Just, it's just being smart. You don't want to say something and then somebody's across the table from you and they're like, hey, well, remember when you said this at the SWAT office? So I was calculated with what I said.
Yes.
But, a lot of times, like I said, you said earlier, you bring humor into it, right? Like I would bring humor into a lot at the SWAT office. Like, the guys would be talking about stuff, and I'd be like, "Hey, say it louder, say it louder." Like, joking around like I have a wire on me or something. The guys would laugh, like one of those
humor.
Kind of things. So,
humor is the best.
And I never had issue with it, man. I never had guys that were like, "Dude, you're a fucking rat. You're this, that."
I haven't either.
Maybe behind my back, somebody said it once. I don't know, but they never said it to my face. And the people that were friends before are still my friends after. So I was fortunate in that respect to to leave that type of way.
Yep. And
You
I
know.
was fortunate to gain all these guests to come on the podcast. Because
Yeah.
if I would have been a dick or an asshole, they wouldn't even return my phone calls.
Right.
So I've been pretty fortunate.
Is Marlon, is there a specific incident or investigation that was particularly challenging or that stuck out in your mind that affected you? And I know you probably worked a gambit of cases, but
You talking from internal affairs?
sure.
Yes. A couple. For sure, the ones that got terminated. The 5 that were termination cases where they were brought up on charges of false statements when they lied, those stick to me to this very day. So I can't pick one
Right.
out of the 5 because all 5 were deep. But if I were to pick one of the 5 that impact me the most, yeah, there was one where unfortunately the officer lied about being in court, like to the district attorney,
Something so
and
small.
having the DA cover for him, calling the DA saying, "Hey, I told the traffic court, the afternoon court, that I'm with you still. Do you mind covering for me?" DA's like, "What did you just ask me?" And the conversation just went south. Abruptly hung up. She gets a hold of tells the bosses. They wrote up a memo and sent it to the Brady unit.
Yeah.
And for a Brady alert, next you know, they send the letter to the chief of police, and it ends up in internal affairs on my desk. All because he just didn't want to be in court on a Friday because he was taken off to Vegas for the weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Vegas, but what I do know, he just didn't want to be going to afternoon court and lied about it.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm taking you back to 2011, 2012. That sticks to me because something so minor cost him his career.
Yeah.
You see, because I always think to myself, well, what if you just be honest?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? Sometimes one of the problems with a false statement as it relates to being charged with one, right, as an accused officer, as an accused employee, is if you decide to come clean and fall on the sword, if you will, does the department continue to... That's what sticks to me the most, is how do we forgive and give someone a second chance,
Sure.
right? Especially when we tell you what? We tell you in the academy to under oath to be what? Forthcoming, forthright, truthful.
The code
and
of
honest.
ethics. Yeah.
Yeah, the code of ethics. But yet you came clean 2 months later. Thank you, but I'm still gonna charge you with a false statement and fire
Yeah.
you. See, that to me is that's what sticks to me the most.
Yeah.
And I feel, to your point, what's the one case, that one particular case, had he just would have been honest, I don't necessarily think that he would have been terminated. To your point. So
Yeah.
that's what sticks out the most.
That's really interesting. And again, I think we're fortunate that I work in a smaller agency, right? Because when we have new cops, they actually do orientation in IA. And, we stress to the brand new cops, like, hey, listen, if you do police work at some point in your career, you're probably going to end up in IA.
Yeah, you're going to get an IA. And
Maybe not a subject, but maybe just a witness or whatever the case.
Good point.
But if you're a hardworking street cop,
for you.
you're probably going to end up in IA. So we always tell people, listen, whatever you do when you go to IA, there's one thing that you don't ever do in IA. Lie.
Yeah, you lie. You lie, you die.
You lie, you die.
Yeah.
That's the IA saying. You lie, you die. Because you could be up for something very minor. Like I was supposed to be in court. I missed court. I slept in or whatever the case is. Sorry, But you're like, oh no, I was in court, or you lie about it. Now that's become the big thing. Like,
Right.
dude,
Yeah.
you weren't even going to get hammered for this. You might have just got a
Yeah.
letter for this, but now
Yes.
we're talking about your career.
And for the
here.
purposes of this particular case that you're telling me about, it's a little more to give you more detail. Is he had to be in court, criminal courts building in downtown, because he had to be there for that case. But he kept telling the district attorney, like, "Hey, you need me here? I'm here. I just want to be here. I'm cool." And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna go talk to defense attorney, and we're probably gonna plea bargain, and give me about 15, 20 minutes, you'll be out."
Yeah.
But he's like, "Look, I don't have to leave. I really would like to stay here in this case." And so when they get dismissed is when he makes the phone call to the afternoon traffic court and says, "Shh, can you please show me here in court in the in criminal court with this case?"
Right.
And so when he gets dismissed, he's southbound through the alley. He's gone. And then he calls the district attorney saying, "Hey, listen, I just want to give you a heads up, but I told that court that I'm still with you, so I was wondering if you can cover for me."
That's dangerous.
You see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and by the way, when he testified in the hearing, he kept going along. At no point did he didn't have no accountability.
Wow.
He didn't fall on the sword in the hearing, and you can't. You kind of stuck with the lie. See, that's the other problem.
Yeah.
Talk about, with
A rabbit hole.
the rabbit hole, or,
So-
excuse my language, but that's kind of like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Think about it. I know I'm lying, and I want to tell you the truth, but I just got done pleading not guilty on
Yeah.
the false charge.
Yeah.
That's got to be a shitty. And here's the other deal too, from an internal affairs, which a lot of people don't know, and I hope you're watching and listening to this. For all you cops out there that hate and think that they're the fucking dark side, they're evil. Here's the deal: preponderance is 51%, more likely than not. That's the standard of proof. I'm telling you right now, when it comes to a false statement, you better crank that shit up to like 90. What I mean by that is, if we're going to be accusing you of lying, you, IO, better bring me, captain, command staff, chief, you better bring me a fucking shitload of evidence. You better tell me that Jaime, Q, John, Jim, and Jill actually, that's 5.
Yeah.
5 people actually said that that's not what happened when you did that traffic stop and you detained Mr. Johnson, suspect Johnson. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Big difference.
Gonna eat you up and spit you out alive in
Yeah.
arbitration.
I mean, there better be a lot
Yeah.
because you just can't be willy-nilly saying, they lied.
Yeah.
False that's serious, man.
Yeah.
Imagine you being caught imagine at home,
Yeah.
when your wife, you're
Oh,
a
yeah.
liar. What? I didn't lie to you.
Yeah.
What evidence do you have now?
That's hilarious.
I went through your phone.
Yeah, I went through your phone. That's what's his name Jaime had my phone.
Right. He took it for like 2
That's
hours
not-
on a
yeah,
Friday night.
That's not me. What are you talking about?
It's you would never think that, I guess, unless you know somebody that's worked IA or that type of position, that you always think of the other person, the one that's being investigated, that deals with the stress and stuff like that. But to share my story with you, it's very quick, and it wasn't even that big of a case. It was a termination case, where the employee did end up getting terminated. It was misuse of clats and
Misuse of what?
like
Computer,
our law enforcement
confidential,
database.
confidential
Okay.
computer systems
Okay.
that you run,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
get confident, need
Okay.
to know, right to know type shit.
One of the she wasn't the main subject, and I won't mention her name because she's still employed with us. But
Right.
I remember when we had to put her on admin leave, and she was a great cop, before all that, and we put her on admin leave. And I remember after putting her on admin leave, we walked her to the chief's office, and we put her and she came out and she was like bawling. And I remember it was almost like seeing your little sister like
Yeah.
cry. And it affected me, my partner, so much that we actually had to like take the rest of the day off because we were like, man, like, because we kind of felt that she,
Of course.
you know, that she was, we knew that she was going to be okay at the end.
Yeah.
That she didn't do anything wrong, but it was one of those things we had to go through the
Yeah.
process, and you know, she survived it, and today she's a fucking phenomenal police officer.
Awesome.
But I remember going through that and just like how that affected me to see her, like,
Yeah.
you know, because in her head she was like, "This is it." I'm like, I got to face my family, and I'm gonna tell them that I'm getting fired. I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed, and
How
like
do you?
all these things going through her head. I felt so bad for her. I'm like, fuck, man, we couldn't even work. We had to take the rest of the day off because we were just like, fuck, man, it just ate me up alive that this poor girl was like caught up in this and you know, crying her way out of the station. And that's one of the cases that sticks out in my head that I won't forget because I remember it had bothered both me and my
Yeah,
partner
you
at the
know
time.
what? The emotions that come with this assignment and everything that has to do with discipline is a very challenging position to be in. That's the best way that I can describe it. Because there's so many avenues and functions that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, someone who's going through it, you having the integrity of ensuring that you're turning in a real good investigation, ensuring that there is a fair and reasonable penalty if
Right.
they actually did it and it's sustained. So there's, you know, there's some moving avenues and aspects of this whole process that, to your point, like earlier, I just felt like these are good conversations to have in a podcast.
Absolutely.
So, as far as these investigations and serving up these, you know, orders to other officers, is it hard for you guys to keep the emotions aside while you're interviewing certain people? Because I can assume that when you're interviewing someone and you have the hard evidence or a good amount of evidence where it's like, hey, buddy, I see
Yeah.
that you're full of shit right now,
Yeah.
but you obviously can't let your emotions get the best of you of like, you're lying to my face right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
stop. So how do you guys find that balance of being able to keep the emotions aside?
It's, I suppose, the short answer is no. There is no balance. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
And sometimes in IO, you got to that's part of being an investigating officer. You got to ask tough questions. And if you're not getting, see, here's the deal. You pretty much know the answer to all the questions.
Right.
Like, don't go in there as an IO not knowing an answer to every question you're going to ask.
Right.
So that defense attorney, whoever's representing the accused, they should be advising their client that, listen, that IO, everything that he's going to ask you, he pretty much knows the answer.
Yeah.
Now, my style might be different than others. I'm not one to hide the ball. I don't hide the ball at all. I meet and consult with the defense attorney and say, hey, this is how it's going down.
Right.
I know it all. So my suggestion to you is to let your client know that I'm bringing the heat.
Yeah.
You know, hammer's about to drop. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't have a good poker face. Plus, I'm very theatrical and charismatic, and I can't. I'll get worked up.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten worked up, but there has been cases where, and again, I'm in a hearing type of environment where I'll do closing arguments and I'll just go off because I just felt very strong and passionate about. No, you don't get to have this attorney tell the board members that this is not really a big deal.
Right.
You know, this is a big deal.
Right.
Let's not act like we're here because he's here because he didn't have his taser on his duty belt. Oh, that's a
Right.
violation. No, that's not what we're here for. We're here
Right.
for like really serious shit. And then they try to water it down and make it seem like, it's not really a big deal.
Right.
That's about it. But to your point, I haven't had one where I had to balance my emotions because for the most part, again, and Jaime can attest to this, the majority of public complaints end up being not resolved. I mean, not sustained, unfounded. It didn't occur. It's not the way it actually went down.
Right.
People like to complain about cops for everything and anything that they do. And in reality, like Jaime said earlier, cops, 98% of them are out there doing the right thing and being professional and courteous
Yeah.
and respectful. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so to essentially, now that I'm reflecting on your question, is when you take this assignment in internal affairs, chances are a lot of what you're going to investigate is probably going to end up being a whole bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But even if it is, just don't be lazy, man, and turn every single stone. Don't cut corners.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
That's
Sorry about
extremely
that.
extremely important. Yeah. I bet you. Well, I guess I should ask this. Did you ever expect that your podcast would also be kind of a platform for mental health?
100%.
Did you know that from the beginning?
No, I didn't. No, I did. I mean, 100% it is. 100% didn't know that I was getting. I didn't know I was going to be Dr. Marrache. I swear to you, I had no idea that it was going to be that way. There's a lot of validity and affirmation especially with old timers,
Yeah.
people who have been around 30 plus years. Yeah, it gives them a sense of, hey, I know I was good. I know that I did a good career, but let me tell you about that one time when the department jammed me up about this.
Right.
So it's kind of like, and I've never had a chance to really talk about it. So that's what the podcast really is. It's a platform where you can talk freely without the department scrutinizing you,
Right.
and there's no media. You don't have a journalist or a reporter picking and choosing what type of story they want to produce.
Right.
Here, you get to say it exactly how.
It's a no holds bar.
Yeah, it's this is your platform.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping in the future that it becomes the platform for all active. I hope that I can walk into your station one day and say, hey, you know what? Come share an IA story that has been completely adjudicated, and let's talk. We don't have to mention your department. We don't have to mention any names or streets or cities or anything like that. I just want to know what happened, so that way that person that's coming on the job and that's thinking about doing this, maybe they can learn something from your story. That's. Yeah. But no, I didn't know it was going to be therapeutic.
I love that because although our podcasts are essentially different in nature, they're they kind of wind back to the same point.
100%.
And kind of as we get ready to wrap up the podcast here, what advice can you offer officers that may be struggling with mental health issues, or what advice could you give them to sustain a long career and be mentally balanced? Because you've seen the ups and downs of people. What's some good advice you can give?
God, that's such a loaded question.
It's such a loaded question.
The best advice I can give is don't ignore your family. Don't. You know this saying that I've been hearing when you're at work? Oh man, I love being here. It's like another day in paradise. People say that a lot. I've heard partners say, oh, dude, coming to work, it's like a vacation. I'm glad I'm at work. Even though it's coming from like, a humor side of it.
Sure.
We laugh and, oh yeah, I feel the same way. That happened to me too. I didn't want to be home. And when you don't want to be at home, that's one of your triggers. Look, man, just go and get help. Don't let your ego get in the way.
Machismo.
Yeah. Don't be that one officer that just, I don't need any help. Seek out, whether it's you or me, whoever. just have someone you can talk to, and not so much just in discipline, just in anything. Because look, if you're 21, 22 years old and you live with mom and dad, and nowadays you're getting paid very well to be a police officer. I mean, and you don't have kids, and you just have a girlfriend, and, you're doing fucking BJJ and CrossFit and all that bullshit. Dude, have at it. Make all that money. Get the boat. Go to the trips. Crank it out.
You're
But see, the
bringing out
problem
all
is
the
that- and-
stereotypes right now.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. What I don't know, and I've been told, the next generation, that this new generation of kids, because I'm calling kids, I mean,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
I mean, my mid-50s were crying out loud. But these kids, maybe they don't want to work hard. Maybe they don't want. If I were you, dude, I would crank out 12, 16-hour days because you're young and I want to learn,
Yeah.
and save your money and have fun.
Yeah.
But once you decide to buy a house or start a family,
Commit to that.
and then here comes diaper duty, you know what? Have a good balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be so quick to say, "Oh, I got to go to work." And whoever's listening, watching, you know who you are.
Whew.
That's the best advice. It cost me a divorce. It cost me time away from my daughter. And if I were to do it over again, I probably would not be chasing the carrot. And I was one of those. I was one of those cops that lived of supplemental income. Just don't be that one.
Yeah. Same. And actually, I mean this in a positive way. I'm glad that I learned that rough lesson, because I wouldn't be here with this podcast, right? I think that was one of the things that like pushed me to start opening up and being a little bit more vulnerable and talking about these things, and it did it cost me relationships and holidays and always working and after work at home and just I never had a balance. And the one thing that we always say here is everything's got to be balanced.
Yeah. We preach that.
Yeah.
Transparency. Well, you know what? You want to be transparent? Look at yourself in the mirror and reflect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's part of transparency. And before we actually wrap it up, in terms of wellness, here's another little twist of a component is training. I'm gonna put my training hat on. I got to pimp out Savage Training Group. What I will say is this: the Bible in law enforcement is A35 APC. It's AB 392. I can walk in to any roll call right now, whether it's your neighboring. We're in not
Rancho.
Chickamauga. Who is it? Sheriff's.
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
I can walk in the sheriff's tomorrow morning, and in their whiteboard put AB 392, A35 APC, and I will ask any officers. Hell, I'll do what I'm about to. So I'll give a $50 bill, and say anyone here can give me the 2 reasons where you can legally shoot someone in California, and I guarantee you, no one would know. And I'm not asking verbatim what they are,
Right.
Yeah.
but at the very least, give me some of the elements.
Yeah.
And that's scary. Is
Yeah.
that we have officers, and I left as a sergeant. Haim is up there.
Yeah.
Haim is not the one pushing the radio, responding to the calls.
Right.
The average OIS is less than 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and we expect officers to know the law.
Yeah.
So training's huge.
Yeah.
And I will say this: the department will never send you to enough training. They won't. And 835 APC is the Bible. And if you don't know what your use of force law is, those days, I remember, wait, hold on a second. It's prevent an escape, overcome resistance, and effect an arrest. Okay, great. That's what I learned. Wait a minute. 10 years later, I learned.
You can't shoot people in the back anymore.
Defense of others and defense of property. Okay, great. That's good to know, Marlon. But, in 2020, they completely changed everything because of everything that happened with the George Floyd incident and all these other incidents that led up to a complete reform. And sadly enough, you might get some young guys to say, I'm the academy, and yeah, they did tell me about AB 392. But it's one thing to actually read it or even to memorize it, but there's another thing to go on a roll call and actually discussing it.
Right.
And you have so many resources. Grab a YouTube video, grab an OIS, and
Yes.
say, hey, you know what would you do? What do you think?
Right.
Yeah.
Because now we have things like de-escalation is codified into 835 APC. Totality of circumstances, AB San Diego is codified in 835 APC. Mental, dealing with a male mental, dealing with a person that's suffering in a mental episode. There is a criteria that you have to go by in order for you to, before you decide to pull the trigger and use deadly force or actually disengage.
Yeah.
So there's, and all this is embedded into this 835 APC, and guess what? Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we, Savage Training Group, do a very good job to get the word out there. Nothing against the department, training coordinators, whoever's in charge of training. I think they do a great job, but you need to take the time to really study the Bible.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's part of mental wellness.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. Tomorrow, you'll get into a critical incident, and you're going to say, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. And this particular interview can cost you your freedom.
Right.
And what I will say also is you're one incident away from getting criminally filed on. You can lose not just your job, you can lose your freedom, bro.
Yeah.
So you got to know this stuff. So you're likely. Yeah, you're likely.
Yeah. Well, good answer.
Yeah.
Q.
Very well put.
Come on, man.
Very-
Give me some. You got some Navy questions for me, or
No.
you're,
I
you're
don't
that
want to.
grunt guy. I mean,
I don't want to learn about puddle pirates, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm alright.
You guys in tanks? What you guys do?
No, I was in field artillery.
Okay.
So.
Let me
yeah.
guess. You ended up in Germany somewhere.
Oh, I was at Fort Drum, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Germany?
Fort Drum, New York.
Okay, but doesn't like all the Army guys go to Germany or something like that?
No, unless I just didn't get lucky enough to go
Something's
to Germany.
like Germany. Well, back in my days, they all
Yeah.
went to Germany
Yeah.
or Italy,
No.
and then we wonder what do you do besides like fix tanks and drive around.
Who'd you talk to that was in the the
Well,
army? That
Interesting you say that. One of my best friends that I was in my aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf during the middle of the war.
okay.
I might add, he came in the Navy at 17. He did his 4 years, got out at 21, and he tried to be in a bank teller for 6 months, and he goes, I can't do this. So he went to the Army recruiter and says, can you guarantee me my orders? Like if I asked you, this is what I want to do, can you guarantee me that you're going to give me this job? And the Army recruiter says, hell yeah, for sure. So he ended up being like some accountant doing admin work.
See, okay, so
And he ended up in
think-
Germany.
I
what I asked.
think that's just that's an issue that you guys have to take up with your branch that you served with
Sometimes,
because when I
So you're guaranteed orders.
when I
Navy
talked to the
was
recruiter, I was you do the ASVAB test, you get your
score.
jobs where you scored, and then they kind of ask you like, all right, like tell us what you want to do, things like that, and I kind of gave them a little. Okay, well, I'd like to, get into combat, see some combat, but I definitely don't want to kick, doors down. And they're like, all right, well, let's, field artillery. That's a good move for you. And I was able to choose field artillery.
Yeah, and he ended up meeting his wife over in Germany. He ended up getting his undergrad.
Yeah.
And then applied for Aviation Officer Canada School, became an aviator,
Nice.
flew helicopters, became a commanding officer, and just retired and now works for American Airlines.
Oh,
as
good
a
for
pilot.
him. Good for him.
So he had a great career, and a lot of it has to do with the Army. So
Hey, I love it, right? But I wasn't one of the lucky ones to make it to Germany. I got Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Drum, New York, and then a little stint in Afghanistan. So,
Okay.
You went to Afghanistan?
so yeah, I was lucky enough to go to Afghanistan.
Okay.
So that was fun.
Yeah.
But no, back to the episode. I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate you sharing your stories and going back to the whole balancing emotions and mental health and things like that. One of the things that I'd like to say is as far as fixing yourself and being better, it's you can say all these things that you're damaged or you have issues, but if you don't do anything about it, nothing's gonna change.
No,
One of the
100%.
metaphors that I like using is if you leave shit on the floor, you can call it shit all you want, but if you're not picking it up, that's still gonna be shit at the end of the day.
Very well.
So, with this conversation that we're having, I really appreciate what you shared because it kind of reiterated that metaphor for me where it's like still take care of yourself at the end of the day
100%.
regardless what you do, what you're doing, stay true to yourself, take care of yourself, and then take care of your tribe.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we only have our tribe, next to us in the trenches with us. So, Marlon, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your stories. I love what you're doing with your podcast. I know it's not really for the civilian side. However, like I said in the beginning, I think that it can actually be very informative for the civilian side
Yeah.
because it'll show them like, hey, cops aren't trying to back up bad Apple cops. They're gonna sit there and they're gonna handle their own if they have to. So yeah, man, maybe that's something that you can definitely bring into the civilian side and start showing people.
Which is the reason why I started the other channel, Capers.
Awesome.
Wow.
Because there is a caper that we'll tell you about that's just wild for the civilians to know what police work is really all about.
Yeah.
You know, and some are funny and crazy incidents
Yeah.
that they come in and they get to tell the story, and that's why I decided to. Haven't dropped any episodes yet, so make sure you go to Capers, a police podcast, and I'll be dropping episodes soon for the civilians, man.
Awesome.
There's going to be fun. I'm telling you,
Look forward to
there's
it.
some really fun ones.
Look
that
forward to
I-
it, man.
awesome.
Look
Sometimes
forward.
I'm lucky that the camera's not on me because I'm just sitting there laughing, thinking to myself. I had one guest, I'll wrap it real quick, where he was on probation with another. They were just like getting ready to get off probation. They had a year in
Yeah.
out of the academy, and their sergeant says, "Hey, go for a food run." So they go to Jack in the Box and they order food. And as they're ordering food, the cashier in the window, a help call comes out. So they grab the food and they throw it right back at her. And they take off. The chase is on. Next thing you know, they go through 3 different cities in the wrong side of the freeway.
Oh my god.
And then they come back and the sergeant's like, "So where's my food?"
It's on the floor of Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
It's,
I don't think you're going to be getting a food run
Yeah.
anytime soon. So it's funny. I had
That's
another
awesome.
officer who's from Florida who said they were after this like burglary suspect, and they're by the swamp, and the suspect jumped into the swamp. So now, can you imagine you're
Yeah.
running while the suspect's in the swamp? Of course, I'm a West Coast guy, and while he's telling the story, the only question I had was, hold on a second. I just need to know, was there any alligators?
yeah. Yeah.
And of course, I'm gonna pop up an alligator on on the episode.
That's awesome.
And and then he goes, "I think I wanted to." For one moment, I wanted to tase him, but I thought to myself, I don't think tasing in the
Yeah.
water is probably a good idea. And they're giving him rope, and they're trying to bring. Just the stories are just
Awesome.
funny and
Well, yeah,
awesome.
we'll
That's
definitely
Capers
keep
for you.
keep,
So,
keep
I
an
did-
eye out for that one.
For
Awesome,
sure, man.
awesome.
Hey, thank you so much, Q.
No.
Jaime, mucho gusto. Just really happy to be here.
Yeah,
What can I say?
Yeah, Marlon, I guess it's really a testament to you, to your career that you spent a great portion of your career working such a stressful assignment. Like I said, I worked a fraction of what you worked, 1/4 specifically, and there was times I wanted to fucking pull my hair out. I'm getting a receding hairline because of it, as a matter of fact. And for you to have worked so long, and it's really a testament to you, and that you're still doing these things, that you're providing a platform for people to tell their stories, and in that it's also helping them cope.
Yes.
It's an outlet, and that you're out there, that you're still training police officers on how to do good investigations, how to and that encompasses a lot of things. When you're talking about the investigations, now you're talking about keeping accountability to people, just really taking care of cops out there. And obviously because I'm a cop, have a special place in my heart for that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you're doing. I'm grateful that you came on, that you share with us. Your podcast is fucking rocking. We hope to be there someday.
Yes. You're coming.
Yeah, we're working our way up. We do have a parting gift for you. A few things actually.
All right.
We like to give our guests a little parting gift for my law enforcement brothers and sisters. We give them this book. It's a manual for law enforcement officers fit for off-duty. Healing from work-related trauma, restoring personal relationships, and thriving at home. I'm not sure if you ever read this or not.
Oh, no.
But I laugh because I see you could read it on the shitter. It's like it's a short read. Cops they like
Perfect for
they
a
like
Marine.
big words and
Yeah.
short reads. This is a short read. It's very powerful. A young man in my department recommended it to me. I read it in like 2 days, and because it was so impactful, we start giving it out to our law
That's
enforcement
awesome.
guests.
Thank you so much.
So this is for you. We also got you one of our Whiskey and War Stories challenge coins.
Gotta have that.
I saw your little challenge coin thing up there on your
Yes.
podcast.
You
So
saw
this is-
that. That's going on. It's going on there.
yeah, this is for you. And then also just a little token for me, Pomona Police challenge coin there for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, brother. We're
Thank
so grateful to have you on.
Yes.
Any closing words for you?
Me? No, man. Look, get a hold of me if you ever need anything that has anything to do with discipline. I'd be more than glad to help you out. You'll have all my information on the episode.
And real quick, where can listeners and viewers find you?
Definitely YouTube. So
Okay.
Internal Affairs. Now it's so populated, you can just push Internal Affairs, and it'll pop up.
Nice.
A Police
Nice.
Podcast.
Nice.
And then it's Capers, A
Okay.
Police Podcast. LinkedIn, my name, Marlon, Marlon, last name Marrache, Marrache. And my main, where I like to feed everything, is obviously my Instagram, where it's I think it's _ Caper _ podcast. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Marlon, or you kind of you brought out these abbreviations throughout
Yeah.
the podcast.
Yeah.
Doc. Hey, doctor.
Yeah.
Doc.
Yeah.
Doc, call me. Yeah.
Call you
Someone's gonna
doctor.
come
Doc
in. Call
Marrache.
me Dr. Marrache, man. I didn't
Yeah.
know. That's not what I
Doctor.
signed up for.
Dr. Marrache. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so
Yes.
much for coming on.
Appreciate you.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers,
Cheers.
cheers. Thank you, guys. Listening to War Stories. Out.